Hi everyone, today we are talking about tax and tip, learning to do percents and find tax and tip. So our agenda in class was to go over our warm-up and then take these notes, which is our whole group instruction. We will take, and I forgot to put this in here, but we will have a break in here to go stretch our legs, get something to drink, eat, breathe some fresh air, and then when we come back, we're going to go into breakout rooms and do our Google, and this was a mistake as well, our Google Forms to see how we're doing in learning this material. So let's begin. First of all, we're going to learn how to calculate tax. Now, tax is something that the government collects, state government, city government, federal government, in order to pay for different things such as our roads, our teacher salaries in the schools, the law enforcement, the politicians, to pay for electricity in the government buildings. We also use tax money to pay for example, during this COVID relief, the money that gets sent to us is money from tax. So it's actually been collected from us before and is coming back to our hands. A sales tax is an extra fee you pay whenever you make a purchase. There are some cities and states that do not have sales tax. Here in California we do, and in San Diego we have a sales tax of 7.75% in most parts of San Diego. This fee is added to the cost of the items you purchase, and as I already stated what it is used for, and is calculated based on that percentage, whatever city you're in, of the purchase price. So it is a percent of a dollar amount. And in the last class, we spent the class learning about finding the percent of a number. And in this class, that number is going to be a dollar amount. And when we answer our questions, we are going to have to answer in a dollar amount, such as if it were $10, I would not just write 10, but I would write 10 and 0 cents. So we need to make sure that we write it correctly, otherwise it will be counted as wrong in your automated grading on the Google Forms. So how do we calculate tax? So this was just a receipt I found online. It is not what I wrote in my question. My question says, Omar bought the following items at Target, and the total before the tax was $64.94. Now I cut off the rest because I want us to figure out what the tax is. So the sales tax where he was is 8%. So the first thing we need to do is change that 8% into a decimal. So in order to do that, we are going to divide by 100. But a shortcut is just to take the decimal point that is at the end of any number, unless it's inside the number that you see, and we move it 2 spots to the left, and we put it here. Well, we don't have anything here in this little spot, so we have to add a 0 here. And when we answer this, when we write this, we will write 0 point. That's another 0 we put out here as a place setting, so that we know we're talking about a decimal and not just a by chance little dot on your paper that you made by accident. So here is our 8% in a decimal, and now we are going to take that and multiply it by the $64.94. And we get, I have to do it in my calculator because I don't have the answer at the top of my head, 0.08 times 64.94, and I get $5.1952. Well, I can't write that in a dollar, so I'm going to have to round it off. And the way I was teaching you is when we're dealing with dollars and cents, we can only go to pennies. So we put a line here, 2 digits after the decimal point, and go ahead and box that number right after that line. Now, the little saying I told you last class was 4 or less, let it rest, 5 or more, let it soar. And this is 5 or more, it is 5, so we are going to round up. And so that is $5.20. So that is his tax. How much did he pay in total? Well, he paid 100% of his bill, plus he paid 8% of his tax. So that was $64.94 plus $5.20, which gives us a total of $70.14. All right, there is a quicker way to do that if you were looking just for the total amount, and I will show you that in the next slide. Again, as I said earlier, our sales tax is 7.75% here in San Diego County. You have bought the following items at the general store, and that came to a total of $30.35 before tax. So I want to know what is the total. Like, let's say I don't care how much the tax is. I just want to know how much the total is, which would mean we don't care about this question. So if you have 100% of your bill and you need to add sales tax to it, you're going to add 7.75%. So your bill is $30.35. That's 100% of the bill. And now we need to add the tax to it. I'm not looking for the exact tax right now, so I am looking for 107.75% of this bill. And that will give me the total plus the tax, the subtotal I should say. So if I look at this 107.75%, here's my decimal point. And to change it into a decimal out of a fraction, I divide by 100, or I move my decimal point over 2. So my decimal point now becomes, I'm going to go ahead and erase this, now becomes 1.0775. And I'm going to multiply that by the $30.35. And when I do that, I end up with 30.35 times 1.0775, $32.70. Now I actually had to round that because this number continued at 2125 after the 70. And so if I take my line like I did before right here and I box in this number, that number is 4 or less, so I let it rest. So my answer, the total bill I had to pay here, was $32.70. Now, this was working backwards, but let's go ahead and say, yeah, I want to know how much that tax was. How much was that tax? Well, I ended up paying total $32.70, and the subtotal was only $30.35. So what my tax is $2.35. And in the next class, we're going to do a lot more work on this, so you will be able to see it a lot better. But hopefully that gives you some idea of how to work this problem backwards. All right, let's talk about tip. When do we use tip? Tip is used to give an extra amount of money to those people providing a service. Usually it's for providing a service. It could be your waiter when you're dining out. It could be giving a hairdresser a tip, your pizza or other delivery services like Grubhub and Uber Eats and DoorDash. It can also be giving a tip to a taxi, an Uber or Lyft driver. Most people tip between 15 to 20%. If it's good, you tip 20. If it's not so good, you tip maybe 12, 13, 14, 15, and then in the middle if it's average. So again, we are going to find we are tipping a percent of the amount, so of a number, which is the exact same thing we've been doing. We are adding on the amount we're going to pay somebody for something. So Alicia went to this restaurant in Amsterdam, or I don't know, could be Austria or Germany, and got a macchiato, a Glöckchen, a Schweiner Schnitzel, and a Chatzpatzli. Not sure what all that is, but we want to find out how much this is going to cost if she wanted to leave an $18 tip. Well, first of all, we need to know what is the total. So when we add all this up, we end up with $54.50. So that's how much the bill was. This would be called our subtotal. It's not the total, it's the subtotal. To that, we are going to add a tip to it, because in this restaurant, in this country, there was no sales tax. It was included in the actual price itself, which happens in a lot of different countries. So we want to find 18% of $54.50. So we need to take that 18% and turn it into a decimal. Move your decimal spot, that's always at the end. And we have, you move it over twice, 0.18 times 54.50. And when you put that into your calculator, which is 0.18 times 54.50, we get $9.81. So that's the total tip. Now, maybe if you're using a credit card, you would give $9.81. Most people would probably round up and just give $10. But we're going to assume that we're giving the exact amount. And so how much did she pay in total? Well, she paid for the meal plus $9.81 for the tip. And we end up with $64.31 in total. All right, let's look at calculating tip in the other way that we were doing the same way we did the second tax. So imagine that you have 100% of your bill and you are going to add on a 20%. Didn't mean to write a dollar sign. I meant to write 20% tip. You are going to end up spending 120% of the amount that you bought. So we're going to do it this way again. We find out that David went to a restaurant and spent $82.98 on some calamari and lobster roll and shrimp and snapper, yummy, yummy. And the total amount that this meal will cost, including the tip, will be 120%, as I said above. And to make that into a decimal, we take our invisible decimal point at the end of a number and we move it over twice. So that's going to be 1.2 as a decimal. So we take the 1.2 and we multiply it by the amount that we spent. And what we end up with is 1.2 times 82.98, and that is $99.576. So what we need to do again is make our line here, box that out. That is 5 or more, so we let it soar. So it's going to cost David, for the entire bill, including the tip, $99.58. Now, how much of a tip did David end up leaving? Well, we can look at taking that total of $99.58 and subtracting how much we had to pay for the food. which is $82.98. And when we do that, we end up with $16.60. So that tip was $16.60. What we ended up doing is taking that 120% and subtracting the 100% of the meal, and that was what was left, was the 20% tip. All right. Here in your notes you will find finding a percent of a number. You write your percent as a decimal, divide by 100. Or move your decimal point over twice to the left. Then you multiply by the dollar amount and you put it in standard money format and round when needed. And here, this is an example that is in your Google form. Buying a backpack for $35 with a 7% sales tax. We take that 7% and turn it into a decimal right here. Then we take that decimal and we multiply it by the cost of the backpack. Then we take that backpack cost and add the tax to it, which is $245, and we have a total of $37.45. So I hope that you understand all this, and happy learning. See you next time.